Hi everyone, and welcome back to part 7 of your free time management course brought to you by Professional Futures Limited. So in the last session we looked at how to make effective decisions. So in this section we're looking at delegation, okay, and specifically delegation with reference to time management. So in order to be able to delegate effectively, we need to understand what delegation actually is. So a definition provided to you by the Oxford English Dictionary is that delegation is the commitment of authority or power. So delegation actually involves giving someone else the authority to do something rather than you doing it yourself. So delegation involves two key elements in order to delegate effectively, and those two key elements are authority and responsibility. So first of all, authority is the right to take action and or make key decisions. So when you delegate a task to somebody, you are giving them the authority to be able to make a decision on that task. Okay. Now the second element is responsibility, and responsibility is to be able to give freedom of action within agreed terms. So in other words, you allocate that responsibility for that particular task, but you specify what the parameters of that task is. So in the earlier slide we talked about two key elements that are involved with delegation, which is authority and responsibility. But one of the other key terms when we consider delegation is accountability. So who is accountable for the delegated task? Okay, well, whoever owned the task in the first place is accountable for that particular task. So that might be yourself, might be the manager, the supervisor, whoever is issuing that task out for somebody else to complete. So even if that task is not done to a satisfactory level, the accountability for that task still remains with you. So the point with this is that the responsibility for ensuring that the task is delegated effectively and well still lies with you, so that if you are held accountable for the outcome of that task, then you should, in theory, ensure that the person you delegate to absolutely understands what's required. So accountability can never be delegated unless you're actually going to give that task to that individually on a permanent basis. So when you're considering delegating a task, one of the things that you need to think about is what should you delegate. Okay, so the first thing is you should delegate tasks that can be done better by somebody else. So that might be a colleague, it might be a team member that you can see has got a far greater capability of doing that task than you. The next thing to think about is being able to delegate a task to somebody who's less expensive. So if you're keeping hold of a job just because you like to do it, perhaps you feel comfortable doing that job, but actually if you weigh it up against a member of your staff who are more than capable of doing that task, then they are far more cost effective for them to actually complete that task rather than you. Other things to think about is if somebody else can do it in better time than you. So, you know, perhaps a team member has more time available than you have. So with some appropriate guidance, they should be able to achieve that task to just the same level as you can, or if not even better. If you would like to issue that task to an individual to become part of their normal function, or actually you believe that task should be part of their job description. And last but not least, you should delegate tasks that will form part of their training and development and will help enhance their abilities going forward. So we all talk about delegation and seem to understand the benefits of delegation, but it's very, very surprising at how few of us will actually delegate our tasks to other members of our team. So I think it's important for us to look at the benefits of delegation. So first things first, delegation will actually reduce your own workload. It's not rocket science. You can see that if you issue some of your tasks to somebody else, then it means that you'll have less to do, or that you'll have more time to focus on more meaningful tasks for yourself and your objectives. It also frees you up to complete more important work, so more high value work, if you like, that's in keeping with your salary level. It gives you time to ensure that you can reflect on the work that you've delivered, and having a little bit of time as a buffer often allows us to become a lot more creative. Another benefit of delegation, which we've already mentioned, is that it will help develop your staff. Okay, by giving them more tasks to do that perhaps a little bit more stretching, it helps train them and develop them so that in the future they're far more capable. And by doing this, this will raise morale within your team, and for individuals it can be quite motivational being issued a task that is something that wouldn't normally be completed by that individual. So as with the last slide, we looked at some benefits of delegation. Well, I have a few more to discuss with you. So another benefit would be to provide cover in your absence. So the more tasks that your teams can do on your behalf, the less of a risk it is for when you're absent, whether you're off sick or whether you're on holiday. Delegating tasks to team members can also ensure that decisions are made a lot closer, if you like, to the action. And what I mean by that is that our team members can quite often be a lot closer to our customers, which often means that they are far more capable of understanding what our customers actually need. Delegating tasks also ensures that we reduce costs. Okay, so that's in line with what I mentioned earlier about you being quite expensive for you to achieve certain tasks. But it also tests promotion potential of your staff and gives you evidence for any performance appraisals that you may want to complete with your members of staff, which in the long run should mean that you have a far more effective department or organisation. So how do we delegate effectively? Well, there are a number of stages that we will go through in order to delegate a task. Okay, so first things first is identify the task. We then need to decide what should be delegated as in that task. So are we giving all of the task away or just an element of it? We need to identify the right person for that task, so look at your team, figure out who's got the best skill set, who perhaps needs developing in that area, or who actually is less expensive. You then need to explain why you're delegating that task to them, and this might involve you selling it to them a little bit. And very, very important, the fact that you should specify the outcomes of that particular task. So what is it that you're looking to achieve from giving them that task? Okay. Now, other elements to consider is that you need to ensure that there's an end date. So when do you expect that task to be completed, and ensure that that's communicated to them. You may also want to discuss with them how they might go about achieving that task, but that depends on their development level. So if they're highly developed, you might just give them the task and then leave it to them to decide how they go about it, or you might want to help them a little bit with some thoughts and some ideas. The next element is that you need to identify any resources that they might well need and ensure that they're made available for them. And between the pair of you, decide how and when you're going to monitor progress. So that might be in informal daily meetings or weekly meetings, or it might well be a quick phone call here and there, or it might even be just a quick email. But you need to decide how that progress is being monitored, and monitoring that progress is key, because remember, the accountability for that task still lies with you. Okay. And last but not least, you need to identify who else needs to be informed. So in other words, if it's a job that you normally do, then you need to speak to and communicate with everybody else that would actually expect you to be completing that job, and explain to them that a member of your team will be completing it on your behalf. Okay, so delegation is quite clear why it's relevant to time management, because it actually will ensure that you manage your time more effectively. It will provide you with more time available so that you can focus on more meaningful tasks that link to your objectives. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed this session on delegation. In the last part, which is what's coming up next, we'll be looking at our last 3 tips on time management. So I look forward to speaking with you then.